Hello and welcome to Grade 1 ABRSM Music Theory. So today I'll be taking you through this workbook that you can purchase from ABRSM in preparation for your Grade 1 exam. Also I suggest always good and trusty Oxford set of mathematical instruments. A few things in here you can use for other subjects, but the ruler is particularly useful because it's not too big. Like the meter ones you tend to get, it's not too cumbersome. With that, I recommend two pencils. These are Stave pencils, and they've got the rubbers attached. And I do recommend as well getting your spare rubber out of your Oxford Mathematical Instrument set. So, with that, let's have a look in here. Front page is very nice. And here we have some bits of information you can read for yourselves. This part here will tell you what you'll be learning, and this contents page just gives you the headings for the different sections. So this is on page 4. I won't read this out to you. You can read that yourself. You can pause this video and read it. But it does say, and I would like to say, that this workbook presents an introduction to understanding music. So I recommend using this in context of your instrumental or vocal lessons and of any other preparation or practice that you might be doing along the way. So let's get to it. Section 1, time values. So we have this note here. It's an oval shaped and it is called a semibreve. And it is worth 4 counts. This one looks like the semibreve, but it has a stem on the right hand side, and this is called a minim. And this is worth 2 counts. This one again looks like a minim, but the inner part is now shaded, and this is called a crotchet. And this is worth 1 count. And again, this looks like a crotchet, but now we've added the little tail on the end, and this becomes a quaver. And this is worth half a count. So there we have it. 4 notes, their names, and for how many counts they last. It's important to remember the symbol as well. So the symbol will tell you what it's called and for how long it lasts. It'd be very good to commit these to memory if you already haven't. So with that in mind, we can now go on to exercise 2. And this is a simple maths problem. So using the information we got above, the minim, which is worth 2 beats, lasts as long as 2 crotchets, because a crotchet is only worth 1 count, therefore you need 2 of them to make the same time as 1 of them. So, moving on for these that we can complete together. The semibreve lasts as long as how many crotchets? Well, a crotchet is worth 1 count, so the answer is 4. 4 crotchets make a semibreve. A semibreve, which is worth 4 counts, lasts as long as how many minims? A minim lasts for 2, therefore to get to 4, the answer becomes 2. 1 minim, which is worth 2 counts, lasts as long as how many quavers? A quaver is worth half a beat, so to get to 2, we need 4. 4 quavers make a minim. And the crotchet, which is worth 1 count, lasts as long as how many quavers? A quaver is worth half a count, so we'd need 2 of them to make a crotchet. Moving on now to bar lines and time signatures. So what are these lines here called? These 3 lines. They're called bar lines. This double pair at the very end, to signify the end of a piece, is called a double bar line. At the beginning of a piece of music, you can see 2 numbers. For example, 2/4, 3/4, or 4/4. These numbers are called time signatures. In time signatures, in directions such as 2/4, 3/4, and 4/4, the upper number tells you how many beats, or counts as we've been using, how many beats are in a bar. And a bar is the section between either the beginning of the piece and the first bar line or between bar lines. And the bottom number on a time signature tells you what the beat is. So what is the full meaning of 2/4? Full meaning of 2/4 is there are 2 beats in a bar. Two beats in a bar, that's the top number, and the bottom tells you what the beat is. And if we just have a look over here again, we can see that crotchets are what this is. 2 beats in a bar, and the beat is crotchet. And so the full meaning of 3/4 would be 3 beats in a bar, and the beat is crotchets. Write the sign which can be used instead of 4/4. The sign that can be used instead of 4/4. 4/4 is a very common time signature used by many composers an awful lot of the time. So the sign which we can use instead of 4/4 is the sign C for common time. So 4/4 you may see written as just a C. Right, more mental maths here. Add 1 note at each place marked with an asterisk to complete the bar. And it says here, add 1 note. It's possible you could add 2, 3, 4, or nearly any number. But it's asking here to add 1 note. So, this time signature is 2/4. So this means there are 2 beats in a bar, the beat is a crotchet, or the beat is crotchets. So, we already have in this bar, we already have a crotchet, which as we learnt earlier, lasts 1 beat. Now we need 2 beats in the bar. We've already got 1 beat. We need to make another beat up to add up to 2 beats in the bar. So the note value we would use is a crotchet, because that lasts for 1 beat as well. And where you can, I've just committed my first error, where you can, try and use a ruler to draw the stems on your notes. It just makes it look better, more professional to your examiner. Okay, in the next bar, which is here, from there to there, from that bar line to that bar line, we already have 1 beat. This quaver is worth half a beat, and we need to add something to make all of this add up to 2 beats. We've already got 1 beat, we've got half a beat, so we've got 1.5 beats. So we need to fill half a beat, which is another quaver. And this time I will use my ruler, put the tail on very nice like that. There we go, there's nothing to fill in that bar. Exercise 5B, this time signature is 3/4, so that means there are 3 beats in each bar, and the beat is crotchets. So across this bar, we already have 2 beats. We need to make up to 3 beats, so we need to add 1 more beat, which is the crotchet. In this bar, we need to make 3 beats again. We've already got 1 beat, so we need to fill in 2 beats. And the 1 note, which lasts for 2 beats, is a minim. We don't need to fill anything in that bar. Exercise 5C. The time signature is 4/4, or as it might be called sometimes, or it might be shown sometimes, common time. In this bar, we need 4 beats. We've already got 2, so we need to make up another 2. And the note value that does that is the minim. In this bar, this is slightly more difficult. We have 2 beats worth there, 1 beat worth there, and half a beat worth there. Adding them all together, that gives us 3.5 beats. So in here, we need to fill in half a beat to make up 4. And the note value that does that is a quaver. In this bar, we already have 1 beat there and 1 beat there. So we need to make up 2 beats so that this bar has a full 4 beats in it. The note value that does that is the minim. In this bar, the entire bar is empty, so we need to make up 4 beats in 1 note value, and the note value that does that is the semi-brief, because it's worth 4. Exercise 5D, we have in this bar, sorry, I've committed a mistake. You should always read the time signature first, okay? The time signature is 4/4, which means you have 4 beats in each bar, and the beat is crotchet. So here we have 1 beat already, a second beat there. We need to fill in 2 beats worth, and the note value that does that is the minim. On to the next bar. We have half a beat there with the quaver, we have 1 beat there with the crotchet, and we have 2 beats there with the minim. Adding them all together, you get 3.5 beats. So we need to make up to 4. So the note value that would do that is the quaver. In this bar, we have 1 crotchet, a second crotchet, quaver, and a second quaver. That means we already have 1, 2, 2.5, 3 beats worth. So we need to make up to 4, a note value which lasts for 1, and that's the crotchet again. And in this bar, we have 1 crotchet, 1 minim, which is worth 2 beats. Altogether, that becomes 3. We need to make up to 4, and the 1 note value that will do that is the crotchet. Okay, exercise 6 is the reverse exercise, really. We need to look at all of the bars in an example and figure out how many beats are in each bar to give us the time signature. As a piece of advice, in grade 1, the bottom number will always be 4. So all we need to do really is count how many beats we have in each bar. So in example A, the bottom number is 4, and then how many beats do we have in this bar? Well, that one is worth 2, and that one is worth 2. So together that would be 4. Just check, that's worth 1, that's worth 1, that's worth 2. together they add up to 4. 1, 2, 1, together they add up to 4, and that in itself is 4. So because there are 4 beats in every bar, the top number is 4, the time signature becomes 4/4, or common time. Example B, the bottom number will always be 4 because the beat will always be crotchet in these examples. Now we need to add up how many beats are in each bar. So in this bar, that is worth 1, that is worth a half, that is worth a half, that is worth 1. All together they add up to 3. Check it with the next bar, that is 1, that is 1, that is 1. All together they add up to 3. The next bar, that is worth 2, that is worth 1. Together they add up to 3, so the top number here is 3. Example C, the bottom number will always be 4 because the beat will always be crotchet. And then we start adding up the bars. That is worth 1, that is worth 2. Together they make 3. That is worth a half, that is worth a half, that is worth 1, that is worth a half, that is worth a half. And all together they add up to 3. Final check, that is worth 1, that is worth 2, and all together they add up to 3. Moving on to notes on the stave. So the stave are these groups of 5 lines. And the easiest one to draw on the stave is the semibreve, because the semibreve is just a circle. But look how the how ABRSM have shown you how to make sure that with a semibreve, the line, whichever line the semibreve is on, the line goes directly through it. Not like this, where that just goes through like a quarter of it, and that goes through a quarter of it. Not like that. It's either the line goes through the middle, or it goes in a space. And if it goes in a space, it doesn't overlap either the top or bottom lines. It's hard to tell with these notes that have been crossed off for you whether the composer means that the semibreve is in the space or is on the line. So be very careful. So now what it wants you to do to practice that is to draw a semibreve on the line, space, and then we fill line, space, line, space, line, and then they carry on here. So you've got plenty of room to do it. So make sure each time that the line goes directly through the middle of the semibreve. When it goes in a space, make sure that each of the lines it is between, it does not fall out of them. Same again with the next line. Same again with the next space. And same again with the next line. You can of course draw higher notes or lower notes by using something we call a ledger line, and each note would have its own ledger line. So it would be that and that, not that. You do not need to draw a line over it if it is above the stave, and you do not need to draw a line under it if it is below the stave. And when you do draw extra lines, they must not slope. Try and make sure that you use your ruler and that they do not slope. You can draw more than one line above the stave, but in grade 1 you will only need the one above and the one below. These lines are called ledger lines. And let's spell that. That's why it's always good to have your rubber. Okay, moving on to stems. Like semibreves, the note heads of minims or shorter notes are also ovals. Some people draw black note heads as single slanting strokes like this, but these are not easy to read and can lead to mistakes. The stem of a note goes down on the left side and it goes up on the right of the oval. The stems of notes on the top 2 lines go down. The stems of notes on the bottom 2 lines go up. The stems of notes on the middle line may go either up or down. Way back when I was taught it would depend what other stems the middle note was around, whether or not you would put them up or down. Personally, I quite like it down, but it doesn't matter. Notice how long the stems are and do not draw them too long or too short. Also, they should stand up straight, which is why you have your ruler. Here are some good and bad examples. So this is a good example because the stem is straight and it's not too long. This is a good example of one coming down because it is straight and it's not too long. Or it's not too short. This is a good example of a quaver. This is a bad example because this stem is leaning to the right. This is a good example of a crotchet coming down. This is a bad example because the stem is slanted. This is a good example because the stem is straight and not too long. And this is a bad example because the note head has not been drawn as an oval, it's just been drawn as a slant. So now it's asking us to draw a crotchet on every line. So what I would do is make sure the line goes through the center of your crotchet. Put your stem on with your ruler, making it not too long. Stem on the second line, a note on the second line, sorry. And on the second line, the stem goes to the right and it goes up. On the middle line, you can either choose a stem on the right to go up or a stem on the left to come down. And I'm going to choose a stem on the left to come down. Then we have a crochet on the fourth line. And on the fourth line, the stem is on the left and it comes down. And on the top line, the line goes through the middle of the note head. The stem is on the left and comes down. And then it wants draw a minim half note in every space. So minim in every space. So there's your note head, first space, and in the first space, the stem goes on the right and it goes up. A minim in the second space, and in the second space, the stem goes on the right and it goes up. A minim in the fourth space. Now you can see there, I've gone over the line. So I'm going to get my trusty rubber, whatever I've done with it. It's in the previous page. It's in the previous page. Oh, it's there. I'm going to rub that out. Rub it out and try again. And when you're in the third space, the stem is on the left and it comes down. And finally, fourth space, the stem goes on the left and it comes down. In printed music, quavers and shorter notes have curved tails, but you can draw them with straight tails if you wish. Remember, when you draw a note with a tail, the tail always goes on the right-hand side of the stem. Okay, exercise 4. Add stems and tails, turn each note into a quaver. This first, what is about to be a quaver, is in the fourth space. So the stem is on the left, it comes down, and then you can put the tail on. Right. This one is in the second space, so the tail goes on the right and it goes up, and you put the tail. This one is on the fourth line, so the stem goes on the left and it comes down, and you put the tail. This one is on the middle line, so the stem can either go on the right and up, or it can go on the left and come down. I prefer it on the left to come down and put the tail. This one is on the first line, so the stem goes on the right and it goes up and the tail comes down. This one is on the top line, so the stem goes on the left, comes down, put the tail on. And this one is in the fourth space, so the stem goes on the left, comes down, pop the tail on. And finally, this one is on the second line, so the tail goes on the right goes up, and pop the tail on. Okay, the treble clef. You might find the treble clef difficult to draw, because it is at first, but with practice it becomes easy. You start with the loop around the second line, G, of the stave, from left to right like this. So you start there, go up to the third line, and down to the bottom line. It's not very good actually. I'm going to rub that out. Try it again. Starts there, up to the third line, down to the bottom line. I've still gone a little bit too far over that bottom line, so rub it out again. And this is what you may have to do in your exam until you get it perfect. Up to the third line, down to touch the bottom line, but not go over it, like that. So now, as I've just demonstrated we need practice to copy out these treble clefs. So you can do this with me. You've got the visual sign here, that's what it looks like, and you're just copying it. Start on the second line, go up to the third, curve round, come down to the bottom, go up and across, turn round, come back on yourself and down, and flick. Now, I have gone way too high here, okay? That one I did on purpose, to show you that you must always, if the exam is asking you to copy something, you must always try and get a good replica of what they've got. So this time, we're going to go up to the third, down to the bottom, up, turn around a little bit quicker, come down, put the flick on. Now that is a much better, the second one I've done is a much better copy of the first one, except to say that the tail is still a bit big. So let's try it again. Up to the third line, come round, up to the top, not too high, turn round, smaller tail. So that's a better copy, okay? And you can keep doing this all the way along until you get the hang of it. As we've said earlier, in grade 1 you will only use one ledger line in the treble clef, the one below the stave. This note is middle C. So, in the musical alphabet, in the English musical alphabet, we use letters A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Okay? And when we get to G, we simply start again using A. Okay, so A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. This note on the second space is the note A. When you've got the treble clef there, this is A. The treble clef is also sometimes called the G clef. Okay, and it's called the G clef because it starts, as we've just been practicing, it starts on that second line and it turns that second line into the letter G. This note here on the second space is one step up from G, and in the musical alphabet, when we get to G, we go back to A. So one step up from G is A. A, that's G. Okay, you know it's G because it's one below A, and you know it's G because the treble clef starts on that second line, G. Then we need to go up to this one, G, A, B, C, D, E, F. So that one is an F. Now you can come down from F if you wish. F, E, D, C, B, A, G, F, E. Now you can go up from A if you wish. E, F, G, A, B, C, C, D, E. Now that's a very long way to come down, so I'm going to start cheating now, okay? We already know that this one is an E. E on the line, D would be one below it, and then this is on a ledger line, so it's one below D, and one below D is C. Again, I'm going to cheat. I know that that one is an A, the second space is an A, one up from the second space is B. I'm going to cheat here because I know what that note is. It's an E. We're going up to F, G. And eventually, after a while, you'll become even better because you'll cheat further and you'll just learn where they are. That's a D. That's a D. And that's an F. Now, moving on to the bass clef. Now, the bass clef performs a similar function to the treble clef in that it tells us where notes are on the stave, but it changes where the notes are on the stave because it's a different clef. So, this is a bass clef. That's the modern way. This is a more historic way of doing it. Both are still valid. And they have two dots, one on either side of this fourth line. Right? The bass clef is also called the F clef because it starts on that fourth line and it turns that fourth line into an F. And we put those two dots either side of the F line. So we're going to try drawing this. So just like this copy here, it starts on the fourth line with a little dot. And it comes up and round to the top line and down to just below the second line. Two dots either side of the F line. I think it's a much better copy than my first one of the treble clef. It's easier to draw the bass clef. So you've got the opportunity and the room to just practice drawing some of these as you wish. You've got lots of room there to carry on. In grade 1, you will only use one ledger line in the bass clef, the one above the stave. This note is middle C. Okay. So now we have some similar note naming exercises. That note there, because this is the bass clef, becomes a C. It would have been different, it would have been an A if that were the treble clef, but it's not. It's the bass clef, so it's a C. One below C is a B. And we'll cheat, we'll count up. B, C, D, E, F, G, A. That's a very long way to count down, so I know that that's a B. B, A, G. That's a long way to count up, so I'm going to count from C, C, D, E, E, F, G, G, A, B, C. And as I said with the treble clef, eventually you will just start learning them because that's the fastest way around it. So, write the name of each note. The first answer is given as an example. So this is bass clef, C. Always read your clefs and your time signatures. You must always read them because if you just assume, I've seen bass clef here, bass clef's going to be there, you might get lucky, but the chances are you won't. Bass clef, C. Treble clef. Because this is a treble clef, it means that that second line there is a G. So G, A, B, C, that makes that note a D. This is a bass clef, which makes that second line an F. F, G, A, B. This is the treble clef, which makes that second line a G, G, F, E, D, C. Okay, you get the picture. I'm just going to fill these out in now as a matter of course. That's an F, that's an F, that's a G, that's an A, that's a B, and that's a C. This next exercise is the first exercise but in reverse, and it will give you lots of practice doing your clefs. To make that an A, this has to be a bass clef. To make that an F, this has to be a treble clef. To make that a D, this has to be a treble clef. To make that a G, this has to be a bass clef. To make that a C, it's a treble. To make that an F, it's a bass. Always make sure you put those dots in. Make sure you give them a good bit of a scribble. To make that a B, this has to be a bass clef. To make that a G, this has to be a bass clef. To make that a C, this has to be a treble clef. To make that an A, this is a bass clef. To make that a G, this is a treble clef. make that a D, this is a treble clef. To make that a C, this is a bass clef. To make that a B, this is a bass clef. To make that a G, treble clef. To make that an A, treble clef. To make that a D, bass clef. To make that an F, bass clef. To make that an E, treble clef. There you are. So, more on time values. What is this note called? This note is called a semiquaver. And it lasts for a quarter of a count. So, how long is each note? Complete the sentences, much like the example we did on page 4. One crotchet lasts as long as how many semiquavers? Well, a semiquaver is worth a quarter of a count, so you would need 4 of them to last for a full 1 count. A minim lasts as long as how many semiquavers? Semiquaver is worth a quarter of a count. We need to make 2 counts, so that is 8. And finally, a semibreve lasts as long as how many semiquavers? Semiquaver lasts for a quarter of a count. We need to last 4, so the answer is 60. Right, another similar exercise, but this time using semiquavers. Add 1 note at each asterisk to complete the bar. The first thing you do is you read your time signature. This means there are 3 beats in each bar, okay? And notice that's a different example, and that's a different example to those 2. 3, 4. So in this bar, we've got a minim, which is worth 2. We've got a quaver, which is worth a half, and we've got a semiquaver, which is worth a quarter. So we have 2 and 3/4 beats. The note value we need to complete it has to be worth a quarter to get to 3 beats, and so it has to be semiquaver. Let's do exercise B. Your time signature is 2/4, means there are 2 beats in each bar. This one is worth a quarter, that one is worth a quarter, and this one is worth 1. So we're missing a half beat if we want to get to 2 full beats. And the note value that is worth a half is the quaver. Now let's move on to exercise C. You read your time signatures for 4. 4 beats should be in this bar. There we have 2, there we have a quarter, there we have a quarter, a half, and a half. Adding all of those together, it's 1. That's those 2 make a half, and that makes 2. So we're missing a half. And the note value which suffices a half is a quaver. 3, 4. So in this we need 3 beats. That's worth a half, that's worth a quarter, that's worth a quarter, that's worth 1, that's worth a quarter, that's worth a quarter, that's worth a quarter. So we need to add these up and see how much is missing at the end. We've already got 1 full beat. We've got 1.5 beats. These add together to make a half. So we've got 1 plus half plus a half, which is 2. And then we've got 3/4. So we've got 2 and 3/4 beats, and we need to finish it by adding something that's worth 1/4 to get to 3 full beats. So the note value that's needed is the semiquaver. Right. Join up the quavers and semiquavers in these pieces of music. So here's an example we've done for you. This is the first one. And what we do when quavers or semiquavers or anything with tails, most of the time, we join their tails together to make it look neater. So copy this exercise out and we join those tails together like that. It makes it tidier, makes it easier to read. So exercise A is here. So remember, when copying out, always try and do your best copy that you can. 2/4 is the time signature, bass clef, 2/4 is the time signature, crotchet in the top space. Again, make sure you're using your ruler for stems. Quaver in the bottom space. Always make sure you're using your ruler for your stems. And I like as well to place them in the same places. As much as you can. That one's slightly off. I haven't done a very good job there actually. So now we want to place that one there. So I'm going to use my ruler to line them up so that we get a good match. Now, I did say that we join tails up, but I've put a tail on there, and that tail, and that tail, and that tail can all be joined together. So it's time for the trusted rubber again. So rub that tail out. So put the stem back on, but we're going to join these tails together. That has only got one tail, so we're doing one join. The next note is there, and it's in the second space, and that has a tail. So we're going to join it to the previous note. Now, this only has one tail, so it only needs one join, but these two have two tails, so they need to be joined twice. Just like so. Bar line, again with your ruler. Finally, the minim. Bar line needs to touch that bottom line, just like that. Double bar line at the end, just like that. Question, example B, sorry. Put your treble clef in, bass clef in, sorry. Bass clef, time signature. And now we start joining. Now, all of these next three notes have tails, so I'm going to draw them in. May as well put the crotchets in as well. And then we're going to draw the stems down. We're not going to join them yet. We're just going to put them in together. Now, they've all got one tail, so they can all be joined to each other once. However, the first note that we've joined together has two tails. So what we do is we put its tail there, but don't join it to the second one, because the second one does not have two tails, it only has one tail. Similarly with this note here, that has two tails. So we put his tail there, his or her tail, or its tail. Don't know why I gendered it. But we don't connect it to this note because that has only got one tail. Let's put the crotchet stem on, the bar line, the semi-reeve, and the double bar line there at the end. There are three there, three more for you to complete there, but I've given you all the information necessary that you need to complete those in those two exercises. I will complete them for you just for reference, just in case you want to check you've got yours absolutely correct. Again, try and line them up. Now these have tails, so I'm going to put the notes in first. Stems on them coming down. They can all be joined together once because they all have at least one tail, and they can all be joined together a second time because they all have two tails. Your crotchet coming down. Up. Now, example D, bass clef, time signature is 4/4. Not a very good minim. So it'll be rubbed out and we'll start again. Minim, stem. These next 4 notes all have tails. They all have one tail. So they can all be joined together once. Bar line, minim, the stem, minim with the stem on the first line, double bar line. To finish that exercise, exercise E, treble clef, time signature is 3/4. Now the first 2 notes are quavers, so they each have one tail. Because they each have one tail, they can be joined together once. The next note is a crotchet. It doesn't have any tail, so it stands alone. The next 3 notes each have tails, so they can be joined together in some form. The form just depends on how many tails each one has. So they all have at least one tail, so they can all be joined together. The first one only has one. The second 2 have 2 tails each, so they can be joined together twice. Just like that. And then just finishing the exercise off. Those last 2 notes can't be joined together because they do not have tails. Moving on to rests. The semi-breve rest hangs below a line, usually the 4th line. The purpose of a rest is to signify that that time period remains silent. So that's the purpose of a rest. When we want a sound, we use crotchets, semi-breve, semiquavers, etc. When we want to rest, we use these symbols, and each note value has its corresponding rest. The semi-breve rest, so that's that note, the semi-breve hangs from the 4th line. Okay, or it is suspended. I prefer using the term or the word suspended because the word suspended starts with an S and so does the semi-breve. So it just cements it in your mind. The rest for a minim, which is that note, is mounted on the 3rd line. And again, I like the word mounted instead of sits. Mounted on the 3rd line because mounted starts with M and M is for minim. Suspended starts with an S and is for semi-breve. Mounted starts with M and is for minim. You can draw a crotchet rest in 2 ways. This is the more popular way. This is a much older way. And the popular way looks like a Z plus a C. So they're quite easy to draw. A slanted Z with a C on the end. And again, you have room here to practice as much or as little as you like. Try making them look like the original. Mine are getting worse. So let's just remedy that. That's better. It's better still. And then just see if you can keep that up. Now, in exercise 2, you have been asked to add one rest at each asterisk to make the bars complete. A completely silent bar always has a suspended rest. Now, we learned earlier that the suspended rest is for the semi-brief, and the semi-brief lasts for 4 beats. But we also use that rest in 3/4 time and 2/4 time to signify that the entire bar is rested. So they've given you the first example. They've completed it for you. And now it's time for us to try these examples. I have missed out the quaver rest is that one, and the semi-quaver rest is that one. So that's the crotchet. Again, get your ruler. That's the crotchet rest. This one is the quaver rest. This one quaver only has one tail. A semi-quaver has 2 tails. So that's the corresponding rests for each of them. So, example A. Treble clef, 3/4 time, which means there are 3 beats in each bar. We need to put a rest in here. In this bar, that's worth 2 beats, that's worth half a beat. So the rest we need is the rest which corresponds to half a beat, to the quaver. The quaver is there, that is the quaver rest. So you draw in the quaver rest. This is a full bar, and we want one full rest in there, so we use the one that is suspended from the second line because it's the full bar that's being rested. In here we have 2 beats, half a beat, and 1/4 beat. So the rest we need to make 3 full beats in that bar is the rest that is 1/4 beat for the semi-quaver, and it looks like that. This example is 2/4, so there are 2 beats in each bar. That is worth 1/4, that is worth 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, 1/4, and 1/4. So the rest that we need in there, all of that adds up to 1 3/4. So to get to 2, we need a 1/4 rest. The 1/4 rest is the semi-quaver rest, and it is there. In this bar, we need 2 full beats. That is worth a half, that is worth a half, and that is worth a half. 1, 1 1/2, so the one we need here is a half, the quaver rest. In this bar, we've already got 1. We need to make 2, so we need something that lasts for 1 beat. That is the crotchet rest, which is the slanted Z with the C on the bottom. This is in 4/4, 4 beats in a bar. We need a semi-brief rest, so it's suspended from that from the 3rd, 4th line up from the bottom even. Suspended. In this bar, we have 1 beat, 1 beat, so we need something that lasts for 2 beats. That is the one that is mounted on the 3rd line. And it's mounted because it's worth 2 for the minim. In here we have 1 beat, 1 beat, 1 beat, half a beat. We need to make up 4, so the one we're looking for is the quaver rest. And finally we have 1, a half, and 1, 1, 2, 3. So we need the one that is a crotchet rest, 1 beat's worth. Okay, moving on to ties. A tie, which can look like that or that, joins notes which sound the same. So it joins notes of the same pitches. and it turns them into one sound. So the crotchet tied to a crotchet, for example, sounds like a minim. Okay, you can join any number of notes in this way, but they must be the same note, and they must be next to each other. The tie goes from the head of the first note to the head of the next. This is correct. This one is not. This one is correct, and this one is not. And these two are correct because they're tied here. That's a little harder to see, and so is that, whereas those are a lot more clear. Add ties where you can in these pieces of music, writing the total number of crotchet beats. Remember, a crotchet is worth 1 beat. And I committed a sin there and did not draw my crotchet with my ruler, so we will be rubbing it out. We'll be trying again. Make the note head. A crotchet is worth 1 beat. So, for the first example, here we have a crotchet tied, and a tie, another good word, or another good way you can think of it, a tie is adding itself, or it's adding the two notes together. So this was worth 1 beat, this quaver was worth half a beat, so now together, because they're tied, they're worth 1.5 beats. So, exercise A, which is here, we can tie those two notes together. And remember, the tie in this occasion goes underneath rather than above because the stems are in the way. So that was worth 2 beats, that was worth half a beat, so together they're worth 2.5 beats. In exercise B, that note is next to and is the same as that note. We can't tie those two notes, or those, or those, or those, because they're not the same note. Okay, that's one of the rules. They must be the same note. That was worth 1 beat, and that was worth 1.25 beats. So the answer now is 1.25. In exercise C, it's those two notes which are the same and next to each other. They can be tied. That was worth 2, that was worth 1, that is now worth 3 beats. Exercise D, it's only those two notes which are next to each other and of the same note value. That was worth 1, that was worth 2, so they together are now worth 3 beats. And finally, you have this note tied to that note, and tied to that note, because they're next to each other and the same note. That was worth 2, that was worth 4, and that was worth 1. So now they're worth 7. Dots. A dot after a note or rest makes it half as long again. Okay? A dot after a note or a rest makes it half as long again. So that was originally worth 2 because it was a minim, but they've added a dot at the end. So it was originally worth 2, they've added a dot, and a dot adds half of the original. The original was 2, half of 2 is 1, 2 plus 1 is 3, so the answer is 3. Lasts as long as 3 crotchets. Okay? Now, this can get quite complicated, so let's take them slowly and together. That was originally a crotchet, and a crotchet is worth 1. The dot adds half as much again. Now, half of 1 is a half, so together that is worth 1.5. Okay, crotchets are worth 1, so 1 lot of 1.5. So this is a minim, and the minim It's the same as we had in this exercise above. The minim is worth 2. The dot adds half of the original, so you get to 3. You get 3 crotchets. 3 crotchets. Okay. This wants to know that that dotted minim lasts as long as how many quavers? It lasts as long as 3 crotchets, so it would last as long as 6 quavers, because a quaver is worth a half, and 6 halves make 3. Let's do this one. This one was originally a quaver, and a quaver was half. The dot has added half of the original. Half of an original, half of a half is a quarter. And so together, they now last 3 quarters. Okay. The question is asking you for how many semiquavers does it last. A semiquaver is worth a quarter, so it lasts as long as 3 quarters, or 3 semiquavers. This one here, we've done it before here. It was a crotchet, it was worth 1 plus a half, so it's now worth 1.5. But it's asking you how many quavers it is worth. A quaver is worth half, and there are 3 halves in 1.5. So a dotted crotchet lasts as long as 3 quavers. And finally, this we've done before. It lasts for 3 crotchets, but it's now asking you for how many semiquavers. The answer to that is a semiquaver is worth a quarter. There are 4 quarters in each crotchet. So the answer is 4, 8, 12. With rests, the dot goes next to it, just as you expect with the note value. So, add dots where necessary to make the bars complete. The example they're given here is that was originally worth 2 and that was originally worth 1. Time signature is 4, 4. So you can't just have 3. You've had to add the dot there to add 1. 2 plus 1 plus 1 is 4. So let's have a go at these exercises. Always looking at the time signature first. Time signature is 2, 4. That is worth 1. That is worth a half. We need to add a half. If we put a dot by that one, that would only add a quarter, remember. So we wouldn't have filled the entire bar. So the dot must go there to add a half to the original crotchet. Exercise B, that's worth a half, that's worth a quarter, that's worth 2. The only place we can add the dot to add a quarter is there. If we put the dot there, we would have added too little. If we put the dot here, we would have added too much. So the dot must go there. And make sure with dots, you're quite particular about them, because the examiner could easily miss them if they're too faint or too little. Question C. The time signature is 3, 4, so we need 3 full beats. That's a half, that's a half, that's worth 1, that's a half, that's a quarter. In that bar, we need to add a quarter. And the place that we put it is there. Is there. In question D, time signature is 3, 4. That's worth 1, that's worth 1, that's worth a half, that's worth half, so that's a full bar. That exercise in C is also a full bar, so we didn't need to worry about it. That is worth 2, and we need 3 beats, so the only place that it can be put is there. Now, time signature is 2, 4. That's worth a half, that's worth a quarter, that's worth 3 quarters, that's worth a quarter, that's worth a quarter, that is worth a half, it's worth 1. That bar needs the dot after the rest to add a quarter in to make a full 3. And this bar, don't be fooled, needs a dot there to add another quarter to that to make a full bar of 2. And finally, full 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that bar is full. 1, that's worth a quarter, that's worth a quarter, that's worth 2. So we're missing a half, so we put the dot there to add a half to that one. Now, same sort of idea, slightly different type of exercise. We're still counting note values and rest values, but now we're going to be tested counting them by where we put in the bar lines. And bar lines occur after the full top number has been used up. So in here, that's worth 1, that's worth 2. So 1, 2, 3, bar line. 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 So this exercise, time signature is 2, 4, 1, 2, bar line. That is worth 1.5. That is worth half. So we've had 2, bar line. A half, a half, 3 quarters, 1 quarter, 2, bar line. This is 4/4 or common time, so we're looking for 4 beats in each bar. They've already done the first bar line for us. That's worth 1, that's worth 1, that's worth a half, that's worth 3 quarters, bar line. That's worth 2, that's worth 1.5, that is worth a half, 2, 3.5, 4, bar line. This is 2, 4, 1, 2, that is worth a half, it's worth a quarter, a half, a half. I've forgotten what the time signature is. Check it again. 2, 4. That becomes 1. That becomes 2. Bar line. A half, a half, a half's rest, a half note. 1, 2, bar line. A half, a half, a half, a half, bar line. A half, a half, a half, a half, bar line. The next one, the time signature is 3, 4. You've got your first bar line there. 1.5, 2, 3. Bar line. 1, 2, 3. Bar line. 1, 2, 3. They've put the bar line at the end. Common time, 4 beats in a bar. They've done the first one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bar line. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bar line. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bar line. 4, 4. They've done the first one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bar line. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bar line. And finally, perhaps the most complicated 3. 1, 2, 3, bar line. 1, 2, 3, bar line. 1, 2, 3. They've done that bar line twice. Okay, accidentals. Accidentals are used to change the pitch of a note. And there are 3 main ones. There are 3 you'll need to know for now. What is this sign called? This is called a sharp. And what does it do to the note? It raises the note by 1 semitone. What is this sign called? This is called a flat. What does it do to the note that follows it? It lowers the note by one semitone. What is this sign called? This sign is called a natural sign. And what does this do to the note that follows it? This sign cancels any previous accidentals. So it cancels any previous accidentals. So it could cancel a sharp, it could cancel a flat. So that is what the natural sign does. You can see how to draw them. Please don't refer to that as the immediate thing I think most social media people would refer to it nowadays. It is a sharp, a flat, and a natural. And this is how they're drawn. And they're drawn like the notes. So if you put it, if you're in treble clef, if you put it on the fourth line, that is a D sharp, that is a D natural. That is a C sharp because it's in the third space, C natural. That is a B flat because it's on the third line, and that is an A flat because it's in the second space. It's important to draw them clearly so you can see which note each sign belongs to. Look how carefully drawn they are next to each other. You wouldn't want them. Let's take this first one for example. You wouldn't, if we were making that a flat, you wouldn't want the flat there. Or if you were naturalizing it, you wouldn't want the natural sign there. You want them next to, so that they're nice and clear. So draw a sharp in front of each of these notes. That's 1, 2, 3. Draw a flat in front of each of these notes. 1 flat, flat there, 1 flat there. Draw a natural in front of each of these. Natural in front of that one. Draw a natural in front of these. Natural, 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 natural. There we go. The signs for sharps, flats, and naturals are called accidentals. Write the name of each of the notes marked with a number. The letter name is enough if there is no accidental. If there is an accidental, you must write it, for example, F sharp. The answers to numbers 1 and 2 are given as examples. So that note there, we're in treble clef, makes that a G, that is a G sharp. Number 2, that is just a G, and I'll explain why. There is no note in front of it, but you may ask, well, there was a sharp in front of that G. The bar line cancels any previous accidentals. Okay, so accidentals only apply to the same notes in the same bar. So that's a G sharp, and that's also a G sharp. Even though the sign isn't there, sometimes it will be, but even though the sign isn't there, that accidental still applies to that note. It doesn't apply to that note because the bar line has cancelled it. So let's carry on. Number 3, that is on the middle line, making it a B flat because the flat sign is in front of it. That you could say is B natural, or you could just say B, because B is the same as B natural. It would be good practice in these exercises to put the natural in, because the examiners obviously want you to be picking out these accidentals. Number 5, that's on the middle line, so that is a B. It is a B natural, but you don't have to write the natural. And that one is an A. A few in bass clef now. That is a C because we're in bass clef and there is nothing in front of it. So it's just a C. Accidentals only apply to notes that come immediately after them, or after them in the bar if they're not cancelled. So that is a C, that is a C sharp. This one here is a B flat. This one here is a C sharp. And now that one is a C, that one is a B, that one is a G. And finally, that one is an F, that one is an F sharp, that one is a B flat, that one is a B. It's not a B flat, the bar line has cancelled it, and the natural sign has cancelled that one there too. And that one is an F. Semitones. The semitone is the smallest step that you can make. Well, for now, it's the smallest step that you can make between one note and another. There is something else, but that'll come in a lot later down the line. So, and the pianists here will have the advantage because it's the smallest step you can make on a piano. Look at these pair of notes and draw a little bracket above any pairs that are semitones. One semitone away from each other, the smallest step that you can make. Right. They are a semitone apart because that's a B and that's a C. A B sharp is a C and a C flat is a B, so there is no step that's smaller. Okay, that is a D and that is a C. Now you could have a C sharp in between a D and a C, so that means it's not the smallest step, so that is not a semitone apart, so we do not draw the bracket. That is a G and that is an A. In between them you could have G sharp or A flat, so that again is not a semitone, so we do not draw the bracket. That is an F sharp and that is a G. There is no smaller step between F sharp and G, so we draw the bracket. That is a C sharp and that is a D sharp. In between C sharp and D sharp there is D natural. So again, that is not a semitone. Now we're in bass clef. Always read your clefs. Okay, we're in bass clef. This is a D and this is a C. In between D and C is D flat or C sharp, so that is not a semitone. That is a B flat and that is an A, and there is no smaller gap between those two, so that is a semitone. G and G sharp, no smaller gap, so that is a semitone. G and A flat, no smaller gap, so that is a semitone. C and a B, no smaller gap, so that is a semitone. The next exercise, add an accidental, if needed, to the second note in each of these pairs so that it is a semitone above the first. Put a tick underneath if it does not need an accidental. So they've done the first one here, a semitone above. So that's D, they've made it into D sharp. And that's B flat. Now this next note would also be a B flat because there's been no bar line, so the accidental applies to both of those notes. So that is the same note, those are the same notes. We need to make the second one a semitone above. So we've gone from B flat. In order to get up to B and make it to B natural, we must use the natural sign. It's not a very good natural because the line doesn't run through the middle of it. So we take our rubber, rub it out, and draw a better example. B, B natural. So we've raised that a semitone, so that's good. B and C, that C is already a B above, a semitone above B, so that's fine. D, we've got D and E. Now between D and E, there is D sharp or E flat. And we want to make the second note as close as possible to the first one. So we need to flatten that E to make it a semitone apart. E and F are already a semitone apart. F and G are not. G needs to be flattened to make it one semitone above F. G and A needs to be flattened by a semitone to make it one semitone above G, C sharp and D are a semitone apart. Put an accidental to the second note in each of these pairs so that it is a semitone below the first. So here we've got B, B flat, G, F sharp, F and E, that already is a semitone below, E flat and D, that already is a semitone. Now, C sharp 2 needs to be C natural. C and B are already a semitone below, F sharp and E semitone below, A and A flat. The scales and key signatures, C, G, D and F major. In this scale of C major, 2 notes a semitone apart are shown by a bracket. Show the other 2 notes which are a semitone apart in the same way. The next 2 that are a semitone apart are the last 2, B and, in this case, B and C. Put accidentals in front of any notes that need them to make these scales, to make these major scales. Then put a bracket above each pair of notes that make a semitone. So the semitone in a scale, the semitones in the major scale, always occur between the 3rd and 4th notes and the 7th and 8th notes. Okay? So G major ascending, a semitone already occurs between the 3rd and 4th note. And between the 7th and 8th, they've had to put the sharp sign in to make that a semitone. F major descending, which is rather annoying because now they've made it descend rather than ascend. So we'll have to label this back to front. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The semitone always occurs between 3 and 4 and 7 and 8. Now 7 and 8, E to F, already is a semitone, so we don't need to alter that. 4 and 3 is not, so we've got F, G, A, and we need to make this a semitone apart. So what we do is we lower that 4th note, B to B flat, to make that a semitone. D major, because it starts on D. The semitone always occurs between the 3rd and 4th note, the 7th and 8th. 3rd and 4th note in this case is F and G. That is not a semitone. So we raise the F to an F sharp to make it a semitone. And then between 7 and 8, we have to raise the C to a C sharp to make it a semitone there. F major, we've already done this. F major descending, we're just doing it in a different clef. The one that we had to change was the 4th note, 1, 2, 3, 4, from B to a B flat. G major, they've already done for us, but they're putting it in the different clef. The note we had to change was the 7th note, which was the F to an F sharp. To put these key signatures at the beginning of pieces so that we don't have to constantly keep writing in these accidentals, we put them at the beginning of the lines where the clefs are. That is G major because it's got the F sharp. This one is F major because it's got the B flat. This one is C major because it's got no accidentals in the key signature. This one is D major because it's got the F and C sharp. This one is C, D, G, and F. Add the clefs and key signatures need to make these scales. F major, so that needs to be an F. That can only be an F if it is the treble clef. If it were the bass clef, that would be an A. That would be wrong. F major in treble clef, you put B flat just there like that. C major, that has to be the bass clef. start with a treble clef. That note would be an A, so it wouldn't be C. C major has no sharps, has no accidentals in its key signature. D major, that has to be a treble clef. Otherwise, that first note would be F, not D. And D major has the F sharp and the C sharp in the key signature. G major, that has to be a bass clef in order to make that a G. And G major needs an F sharp. Write out these scales using the rhythm shown on the line above. Add the correct key signatures. G major, so we've got the treble clef, G major. G major has the sharp on F. We've been given 4/4, and it wants us to do it descending, so we have to start on a G, but it wants us to come down. If we were to start on that G there, we'd go all the way down and we'd need too many ledger lines. So we're going to start on that G. That one was a minim, this is a crotchet. So G, F sharp, because it's in the key signature, E, bar line in a minute, D, C, B, A, G. Take the ruler and pop our stems on. That one needs it on the left and come down, left and come down, left and come down, bar line. Again, try and match up in your drawing where with the other lines. And don't let them confuse you. Notice how all the stems there are going up. When you put them on the staff, you must remember which way the stems go on and whether they go up or down depending where they are on the line. So that's correct. That B, the stem could have gone up on the right if you had wished it to. This is F major. F major has the B flat on B. Has the flat on B, sorry. And we're going to, it wants us to ascend. If we started on that F, we would need too many ledger lines going up, so we're going to start down here. F, G, A, B, C, D, E, and F. Crochet, crochet, quaver, quaver, bar line, crochet, 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 bar, double bar line at the end. And remember, of course, to make sure that your stems follow the rule. That when they get to halfway they can go up or down. But after that, you need to remember, C major has no key signature. 2/4 is the time signature. We want to ascend, so we must start there. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and that last one will need a ledger line, so you use your ruler. Just like that. And now, put the stems on. Make sure your dots are well defined. They can be put together. That needs a tail on it. It's a bar line. I think I've missed a bar line somewhere. Yep. There. Make sure your dot is well defined. Either I hadn't put it on, or I put it on so faint even I can't tell. And there we go. Name each of the keys of the melodies below, then write out the extracts again. This time use key signatures instead of accidentals. So, in this example, they've used an F sharp and a C sharp, which we know from earlier pertains to D major. What they've then done is they've filled out the music, but they've put the key signature at the beginning. so that they don't need to put these accidentals in front of their corresponding notes, because the key signature already makes sure that that is now an F sharp, that is a C sharp. So, a few exercises for you here. This where the key is F major, bass clef, time signature 3/4, starts with an crucis or upbeat. Now, we were asked to put the key signature at the beginning. Key signature, we've already discovered it's F because it's got the B flat. So you put the flat down there, like that. And now, when we get to that note, we don't need to put that flat in anymore. Again, committed a sin. Do not draw your stems without your ruler. Goes in there. Goes in there. And now we're getting to the B flat that is no longer, we don't need the accidental anymore because it's already in the key signature. My piano teacher always told me to copy everything that they do best you can. So always put the etc. I can't remember if I did that earlier, but the thought just reoccurred to me after 20 years. So try and copy it as best you can. This extract uses an F sharp, so that means the key is G major. So we fill in treble clef. Now we need the key signature. The key signature goes there, the F sharp. Time signature. And now just fill the notes out. Now, you may ask here in this next group of 4 notes, why does the stem for this note go up? Well, it's a good question, because it should come down, but because it's connected to 3 that could go up anyway, or well, 2 of them do go up, and that B could go up or down. But because it's connected to 3 that would go up, it, in this case, is allowed to go up to be connected to the others. D, G, G. Of course, this piece of music we're copying out is a very famous piece of music a lot of people learn very early on in parts of their training, whatever instrument they are studying. Because we've put the F sharp in the key signature, we do not need to put it in front of that note, because the key signature already makes it a G sharp, an F sharp, sorry. I'm drawing a G, I was talking about an F sharp. G, G. And that has the bar line. This is F major because we're using B flat. So again, draw that, and because it's F major and we're in treble clef, key signature goes there. I'm now not going to copy out that. You can do that for your practice. Just to say, when you come to this note, you no longer need to put that in there because you've already stuck it in there. With exercise D, this is in G major because it uses the F sharp, bass clef, 2 dots, and the key signature goes on that second line, followed by the time signature. And when you get to that note, you now no longer need to draw that accidental in because it's already in the key signature. And finally, this is G major. So we draw treble clef. G major has that F sharp there at the top. So now when you come to this F sharp, you no longer have to put it in there because you've already put it in the key signature. Moving on to cancelling an accidental. Now, an accidental lasts till the end of the bar. I mentioned that earlier. Okay, so that note there is still an F sharp, okay, because the bar line hasn't occurred yet. To change the note back to an F natural, you would need to add the natural sign. And it's the same if the key signature is there. When the key signature is there, that should be an F sharp, even though it's not in front of the note. So when the key signature is there and you want to make that an F natural, in this case, you have to put the natural sign in. Look at this example. Note 1 is an F sharp because of the key signature. Note 2 is an F natural because of the natural sign. Note 3 is still an F natural because the accidental hasn't been changed. Okay? But note number 4 is an F sharp because the sharp is in front of it. So that's an F sharp because of the key signature. That's an F natural because of the natural. That's an F natural because that natural is carried across. And that is an F sharp because the sharp sign is in front of it. So your task now, add an accidental in front of each note marked asterisk to cancel the previous accidental. As an F natural, to cancel it and put it back to its original F sharp, you need the sharp. That's a D sharp, you need a natural to cancel that one. That was a C natural, but we want to cancel that C natural, so we need the sharp to make it C sharp again. And I've missed one. Always check your work, always, because it's so easy to miss something. A, G sharp, A, G sharp, because that accidental carries on. That one is a G sharp as well, because the accidental carries through. We wish to return it to its normal G natural. Here we've had E flat. Now we need to put a natural in there to return that to E natural. That was originally meant to be a B flat because of the key signature. So to return it from a B natural to a B flat, we put the flats in. Name each note marked with a number. The letter name is enough if it does not have an accidental, but think about the key signature and any accidentals from earlier in the bar. So we need to name this. This one is a B natural because there's been an accidental in that bar that has not been cancelled. It should be a B flat because of the key signature, but it's a B natural. Number 4 is G. Number 5 is B flat because the bar line has cancelled that natural. So now the key signature reapplies. 6 is an F. 1 is a D. That's a G sharp. That's a G. That is an F sharp because of the key signature. That is a C natural. That is a C sharp because the last accidental before it was a C sharp. Degrees of the scales and intervals. Each note in brackets is the first degree of the scale. It is the keynote of the scale. After each keynote, write the note to match the degree that is written below the stave. First degree of the scale is called the keynote. We already talked about this a little bit when we did the degrees of the scale, and I numbered them 1 to 8 for each particular scale. So this is using that system to draw the notes in. So this one, we want the second. That's the first, the keynote. The tonic is the better name than keynote. The tonic, that is 1. That's 1 up, so it's the second. That's the tonic, 1, 2, 3. That's the third. We need the fourth. 1, 2, 3, 4. Seventh. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. C sharp. Fifth. D. sixth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 8, or the octave F. The distance in pitch between two notes is called an interval. If the two notes are played one after the other, it is called a melodic interval because you can hear a melody, one note to another. If the two notes are played together, it is called a harmonic interval together. You can measure the size of an interval by counting the number of degrees of the scale that it includes. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, just like I did earlier. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The number of degrees is the number of the interval. In grade 1, the examples always have the keynote as the lower note. Here are the intervals from the keynote in G major. Second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh octave. The number of the interval is not changed by the key signature or by any accidentals in front of the notes. The number remains the same. Give the number of each of these melodic intervals. Some basics, just counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's a seventh. 1, 2. So that's a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's a fifth. 1, 2, 3. That's a third. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's an eighth or an octave. You'd probably say octave, but it is an eighth. Okay, you will get quicker at these as you practice them. But those are the answers for them. Moving on to harmonic intervals, seventh, so you count 7 up from the keynote, tonic, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, need my ruler, 7, fifth, count up 5, count up 1, count up 4, count up 6, sorry, I drew a fifth instead of a fourth. Fourth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 6, and so on and so forth. And again, you'll get quicker at these the more that you practice. The more that you practice, but do check, because I've made plenty of mistakes already that I've had to go back and correct. So you must always check. Must always check your work. Shall we? Look at the melodic intervals marked with a bracket. Write the number of each interval. The first note is the key note in every case. So this one, 1, 2. Second, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And again, as you go on, you will get to know these very easily. So you can identify them. Octave them. So you identify them a lot easier, a lot quicker over time. Okay, the tonic triad. Tonic means the first note, the key note, the home note, the tonic, and triad means 3. So it's basically forming 3 notes that are based on the tonic. They're composed of the first, the tonic, the third, and the fifth. First, third, and fifth, first, third, and fifth. So write the keynote for the following. Write the keynote followed by its tonic triad. This is G major, so G. That isn't a very good G. Use the rubber again. G, followed by its triad. Tonic, third, and fifth. That's not a very good fifth because the line doesn't run right through the centre. There we go, it's better. F major, F, A, C. Tonic, third, fifth. D major, tonic, oh it wants the tonic note first. Tonic, followed by the tonic triad. D, F sharp, A. G major, that's the tonic note. Tonic, third, fifth. C major, tonic note, tonic third, fifth, D major, tonic, tonic third, fifth, F major, tonic note, tonic third, and fifth. Okay. In grade 1, you will compose an answering rhythm. In the grade 1 exam, you will have to compose a 2-bar rhythm. It will have these simple rules. You'll be given a 2-bar rhythm to follow on from. It will start on the first beat of the bar. It will use one of the time signatures you already know, 2/4/3/4 or 4/4. You will not need to write a melody, only a rhythm. You will not need to put in a clef or key signature. You will write your rhythm on one line of the stave, like this, rather than on a single line, or no line at all. You need to be careful about two different things. How to write the rhythm down, in other words, how to decide which notes you should join or beam together, and where to use ties and dots. Look at the rules on the next page for help with this. 2. How to make the 2-bar rhythm interesting. There is some general advice on pages 24 to 5 to help you with this. Okay, some rules. You should beam together where you can. Okay, so where you can, beam them together. That's pretty explanatory. Okay. In printed music, you may sometimes find groups of 4 or 6 quavers beamed together in twos. Nevertheless, in this test, you should keep to the rules above. Note that in 4/4, quavers should never be beamed across the middle of a bar between the second and third beats. So you never beam them across the middle of the bar. You should always do that. Beam semiquavers together in single beats, and also any group including a semiquaver. 16th now. Avoid ties wherever possible. The dot is better than the tie. This arrangement of rest will be explained in grade 2. You will not need to use rest when writing and answering rhythm in grade 1. So, rewrite these bars so that they still sound the same. Make any necessary corrections in the use of beams, ties and dots. So, in 2/4, these can be beamed together. Again, use your ruler to make sure you know exactly what you do. In 3/4, you can beam all of these together, just like so. Beam these together. Just like so. You can beam these together because it does not go across the halfway point of the bar. The halfway point is there. You can do that. So now, figure out where the halfway point of the bar is. It's there. Do not beam across the halfway point. Beam those together. Oh, use your ruler. But again, don't beam across the halfway point. Again here, don't beam across halfway point. They're tied together. They can be beamed together. But these shouldn't beam across. Okay. Now for some general advice about writing 2-bar rhythms. The first and most important point is this. Try to imagine how the notes which you are writing would actually sound. Try to hear them in your head. When you are practicing, always tap out your rhythms. Even during the exam, you need not disturb anyone if you do this really quietly with your fingertips on the desk. Like that. It is very important to keep in strict time, so think of a speed and stick to it. Probably somewhere between crotchet equals 76 and crotchet equals 100 beats per minute will be suitable. To make your rhythm interesting, try to make your rhythm interesting. Imagine, for example, that you have to add a 2-bar rhythm to follow this. Dum, ba, 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 bum, bum, bum. You could just write bum, bum, and that would be correct, but it is very dull. You could repeat the 2 bars you have been given. This often happens, as is the example in what we copied out earlier. Dum, da, 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 dum, 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 da, 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 dum, dum, dum. However, if you just copy out again the 2 bars you've been given, you will not have shown that you can invent anything. Your rhythm, therefore, should be a little different from the one that you've been given, but it should be similar, and parts of it may even be exactly the same. Bars 1 and 3 of this melody, for example, have the same rhythm, but not the same notes. Bum, 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 bum. In the next example, bars 2, 3 have the same rhythm. Bum, 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 bum. And in this example, bars 2 and 4 have the same rhythm. Bum, 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 ba, ba, bum, ba. Patterns with a repeat in them can help the bars connect to each other, but you do not have to use them. Here, for example, are 4 bars, which all have different rhythms. Da, 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 da. Although the bars are all different, bars 3 and 4 seem to belong to bars 1 and 2. The last 2 bars seem to balance the first 2. Or you could say that the last 2 answer the first 2. They make an answering rhythm. You must be careful how you finish your rhythm. It is not usually a good idea to finish with a semiquaver, because this may make the rhythm feel unfinished. If you tap these rhythms, for example, you will see that they both feel as though they want to be followed by something in the next bar. Bum, ba, 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 ba. Ba, 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 ba. They sound like 2 bars out of longer rhythmic patterns. They're not answering rhythms because they're not complete. So, add answering 2-bar rhythms to these opening patterns. You can complete this how you more or less would like, except to say you should probably always finish on at least a crotchet or a minim. You should always count how many beats you need to fill. That is the most important thing. And you should try and add some variety to it. I'm going to complete 1 or 2 of these as an example. So you've got ba, ba, bum, 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 and I'm going to say and again use your ruler. Da, 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 da. So that was 3 beats. Let's say something like that. The rest you can complete as you would like to, following some of the rules that they've set out there. And there's some more for you to think about there too. The final part of your exam, you will be tested on performance directions. Composers can often use special sounds or words which are not in English to explain how they want their music to be played. The best way of getting to know them is to look them up as you come across them in your pieces and then to remember them. I personally found that the best way to remember all of these, other than using them day-to-day in music lessons, was to copy them out with the definition. So I would copy accelerando out, and I would copy out its meaning next to it, gradually getting quicker. Adagio, slow. The best thing I found was that then to give this book to a friend or a family member and ask them to pick terms that you cannot see or that you do not have written down in front of you. Pick terms out and get you to define their meaning. Here are some signs and directions which you need to learn as well. You can also follow the same principle. These general exercises are examples of what you will get in your papers, which I will go through in the next video. Thank you for watching. I hope it's been informative, and I hope it's been useful.